From our studio apartment in the Beyoğlu district, we frequently took ferries across the Bosporus to the Asia side of Istanbul. The first place that we explored was Üsküdar, supposedly the area where the mythical Io, cursed by the Greek god Zeus to wander the world as a cow until she crossed into Asia, made landfall and gave the Bosporus, cow crossing in ancient Greek, its name. Üsküdar's port was active, but not nearly as crowded as Kadıköy or anywhere in the Fatih district. The pedestrian walkway along the Bosporus was wide and open, and we got our first views back to Europe from here, which still feels a bit surreal. One hard-to-miss landmark is Maiden's Tower, named for a legendary Byzantine emperor's maiden daughter who supposedly died there. The island was first used by the ancient Greeks, then by Romans, Byzantines, and Ottomans. The current lighthouse, used for a scene in the Pierce Brosnan James Bond film The World Is Not Enough, was converted to a cafe and restaurant in the early 2000s. Unfortunately, it's been closed to visitors since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Uphill from another Üsküdar ferry port in the Harran neighborhood, and yes, the Asia side is also hilly, we visited a small neighborhood mosque. In stark contrast to the celebrated mosques that are major tourist attractions, the big Selimiye Mosque was beautifully peaceful and serene. There are over 3,000 mosques in Istanbul, the most of any city in Turkey. 19 are converted Byzantine churches. The Hagia Sophia was the first of these. 48 were commissioned by Ottoman sultans, including Sultan Ahmed, which tourists call the Blue Mosque, the Dolmabahce Mosque, and Süleymaniye Mosque, the largest in the city for over 460 years. Most of the rest are neighborhood mosques like this one. We were the only visitors. No other shoes were left at the entrance foyer. It gave us a chance to admire it at our leisure and really appreciate the mosque's architecture. Outside, the Wada area is used to cleanse and prepare your face and extremities for prayer. The tall, slender minarets are used for the 5 times daily call to prayer. Traditionally, muezzin would climb the minarets to shout the call from the parapets. That job is done by loudspeakers today. The Qibla wall, which faces Mecca, and the mihrab niche indicates the direction of Mecca. The mihrab is usually the most ornate part of a mosque. The minbar is a pulpit on which the imam delivers sermons. Like its larger cousins, Selimiye Mosque had a high, well-lit central dome with a circular chandelier symbolizing the infinite, eternal light of God, Allah, that is central to believers' lives. Byzantine Orthodox churches also have these elements in common. Leaving the mosque, we happened upon a tea house that was across the street. Not a typical cafe, this one used to be a hammam thermal bath. Most of the hammam was used for indoor seating, but the tepidarium was used as a beautifully decorated and lit access area to the restrooms. Farther inside, the caldarium was simply spectacular, showing the underfloor where heating fires would go, as well as how the different side rooms would be used. It made you really appreciate all the elements that went into the design of a hammam. Accessible by bus from Üsküdar or ferry from anywhere else in the city, Kadıköy is a busy but but not crazy place that's excellent for shopping and food. The area immediately across from the ferry port is a great marketplace that reminded us of Hong Kong, Manila, and other Asian cities. Electronics, fresh produce, spices, and seafood abound. Restaurants and cafes are sprinkled throughout. We were even able to find a decent Korean place. A vintage but still nice tram circles the market blocks, making it all very accessible. South of the market block, the Moda district has a nice waterfront and promenade that connects back to the port. There's also a wonderful Hong Kong-style restaurant. The food was delicious and the decor took us back to our late 1990s trips to Hong Kong when we lived in the Philippines. Walking back through the Moda neighborhood towards the ferry, there's a quaint tea house with fantastic Bosporus views. The ferry ride back to the European side takes you past a massive deep-water drill ship that was in port. The sheer size of it is mind-boggling. One day, we took a ferry about 15 miles north to the town of Anadolu in the far outskirts of Istanbul. Along the way, there were brief stops at several ports, and we got a good look at both sides of the Bosporus coast. There are many luxurious houses, both from the Ottoman period as well as from modern times. The more northern ports had many more modest houses. And they looked to still be active fishing villages. About halfway up at the narrowest point in the strait, we passed the coastal Romae history fortress that was built in 1452 on the orders of Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II as a significant part of his plan for the siege of Constantinople in 1453. Mehmed's father, Sultan Murad II, had failed to take Constantinople, in part because he didn't control the Bosporus waterway. Learning from this mistake, Mehmed's fortress succeeded in blockading the northern Bosporus, choking off one avenue of aid to the besieged city. Since 1960, the fortress has been a museum and open-air performance venue for concerts and plays. The nearby bridge is also named for Sultan Mehmed II. The final stop of the ferry, Anadolu, was a former Byzantine and Genoese fortress. The town is now a fishing village. Unlike the other quick stops, the return ferry doesn't depart for 2.5 hours, leaving more than enough time to eat lunch by the port and walk up the hill to the castle ruins. The climb up to Yora's castle, and I have no idea why it's named that, is not bad, with enough signs along the way to not get lost. Parts of the hill are an active military base, as it's still a strategic location. Inside the castle property, there are several cafes that give a view back along the Bosporus to the city. The castle itself has definitely seen better days, but it's still a popular spot for family picnics. Originally settled over 3,000 years ago by the Phoenicians, the hilltop gives a commanding view of the strait from the main part of the city along the shipping lanes, all the way to the Black Sea. Another ferry trip we took was about 90 minutes south to Heybeliada, the second largest of the Prince's Islands. The islands got their name because the Byzantines and then the Ottomans used them as a convenient nearby place to exile troublesome princes and other problematic royalty. The most prominent landmark as you approach Heybeliada is an 11th century Greek Orthodox monastery which houses the currently defunct Halki Seminary. From the port, we took an electric tricycle ride up the hill. Motorized vehicles are banned on the island, with exceptions for the police and other critical service vehicles, so trucks and buses are all electric. The monastery used to house the main Greek Orthodox seminary in Turkey until 1971, when a legal technicality forced all private universities to either join the public University of Istanbul or close down. The Patriarchy of Constantinople opted for the second option. You can tour the grounds and classrooms, as the site is still maintained by the church and is used for conferences. We walked back down, a pleasant stroll which gave us a chance to take in the scenery. And appreciate the architecture of the houses. There are many electric trikes in town, the taxis of the island, as well as private e-bikes. However, only old-school bikes are available for rent, undoubtedly as a concession to the tricycle lobby. We decided to rent bikes, assuming that we could circle the island without too much climbing, but that assumption was quickly proven wrong. Vic stuck to the flatter areas near the port, and I tried to cover as much of the island as I could. Even that was easier said than done, as there were many places where riding was prohibited and I had to walk my bike. I did manage to find some places to actually ride with some good scenery. But due to the restrictions and the hills, the route was a lot shorter than I'd hoped. After the ride, we found a great place to eat by the port, then waited for our ferry home. That concludes our exploration of the Bosporus and the Asian side of Istanbul. There's still a lot more to cover in the Fatih district, the old Constantinople. The ancient walls, once thought impregnable, the Grand Bazaar, the famous mosques, Topkapi Palace, and even more. So stay tuned for the next Istanbul installment. If you want a reminder when future episodes come out, you can subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the like button if you like this video. Until next time, teşekkürler.